The meeting and checked with Flush and they had no problem.
Good.
You next, Becky, anything? Joan? All quiet.
I do have something. We are sending out questionnaires throughout the community, 0 to 3-year-olds for early Head Start. If we have enough, we got notice yesterday that in 10 days an application will come out for it. So we're going to try and start it. We are doing it in Chronic now. We're going to start with 10 home base in Lakeview and try to expand every year that they have it. So
Cool.
if you know anyone, have them. If they don't get a flyer, then have them call us. We'll get one out to them.
Well, if you see the blank look on my face, it's because I don't know what you want me to do.
Oh, just anything from your school, just, or where you're from, what's going on.
Where I'm from?
They ask all these different, wherever, I don't know anything about you, so I don't know what to say.
Lakeview School
Yeah.
District.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you give me an idea of what, because we have a meeting every 2 weeks, so there's always something, but I don't know what.
Just usually stuff that's going on within the district, things
There
that
you
are
go.
changing or something that could affect the ESD or that sort of thing, or where your bottle is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody complains?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Cameras on.
Yeah.
That's
what
all
it's
in District 7, then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So ever any business there?
Yeah, I'll listen now with another angle.
Yeah.
Well, Bob was there. Okay, so there's a great.
Will kept firing questions at me about those laws, and the funny thing is, I'm gonna go over some laws tonight, but the laws we're covering are kind of two different things.
Sure. No, so would there have been anything at that meeting that night that would have been pertinent to this meeting that you would want me to bring up?
Oh boy, my mind's 1,000 miles away. That was a long time ago Monday night.
If you can't remember, it's usually.
I just remember Will turning to me 2 or 3 times asking if I had any comments on those proposed laws, and I was like, no, I don't know.
Yeah,
Kind of tracking 2 different things. Not really.
okay.
You know, one of the things that really struck me was the COIC person, Ted, I forget Ted's last name.
Wilton.
Wilton, yeah, he's new. Heard just some great things about the COIC program here in town, and Ted's really doing a good job with some of the most at-risk kids in the community. So.
Yeah.
They have the big screen thing like they put in our school?
No, this is,
A
no,
whole different kind of.
yeah. Actually, Ted's emphasis is kind of on direct instruction with the kids and really trying to minimize.
Oh, COIC, I'm
Yes.
thinking of Klamath
Yeah,
County Community
yeah,
College.
yeah. His real forte is working directly with the kids and trying not to put them in front of the computers quite as much.
Which is probably good.
Seems to be having very good results.
Good.
Okay, there's one.
See, that's a good
There was something.
Hey.
The only thing at Paisley, Eric was discussing earlier, we're having a little bit of internet issues right now, so we're trying to work through that. And Bill Wirtz will be with us for 1 more year, the superintendent, and after that we will be looking for someone else. But he'll give us 1 more year, so that's good.
His wife seemed more excited about it the other night than he was.
I think there was a little bit of pressure there,
Those
yes.
guys are always, seems like.
We're tough to work for, we're gonna say.
Yeah.
And Bob, next time you're gonna show up, let us know, so, because we're all sitting there going, and I want the board to get a little bit more engaged, because we're just, so we can ask you some pertinent questions.
Sure.
You're written out in 5 minutes, I'm like, we looked you up.
So
He would have to get to our meeting. Or no.
Well, I mean, there was no questions for him, so
I
he just
know.
got.
You're covered.
I had no excuse. I mean, I leave their meeting quickly to get to your meeting, but yeah.
We're just gonna be done, so.
Hey, we changed the agenda for you. Our school, everything's hunky-dory. We filled our vacant board position. So that was kind of a trying deal. We had 3 people, and of course, small community, you know all 3 of them fairly personally. So I've worked with 2 and known 1, and so it's kind of like, what do we do? You know? So I let everybody else decide, and then I followed suit, because it's really tough when you know everybody in a small community to pick one, so.
Who's your new board member?
Don't want to say his nickname, but Mark Hendricks. So,
You had 3.
3, well, part of it's my
That's
fault,
great.
because I went around soliciting everybody
Yeah.
Cause I was hoping for more than just one, so, but I didn't realize how close the three people were gonna, two were ex-board members, one wasn't. Two of them still have children in the school, so it was, and I was like, really? Cause I went, and then,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, I feel ashamed no matter what I do. So, yeah. And other than that, I think that's it. So, financial reports.
Okay. You've got your financial summary in front of you. I just want to note that on our expenses, where we spent $53,000 less this year than we did this month last year, we did get invoice for the counselors from District 7. So in February, we paid $65,000. Okay, so it's gonna catch up. We're gonna spend, it's not like we saved $53,000 anywhere. You'll see it next month on the,
Just signed the check today, so.
yeah. Other than that, if there are any questions.
Yeah, I just wanna know why it's picky, but snow removal from a couple different places.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a miscommunication. We contracted with an individual to do our sidewalks, and he also did some of our parking lot with his four-wheeler. But the individual who did it for us in past years also came and did it around about the same time without
So it really cleans
Without-
sidewalks, I figured.
communicating with us. They just came and did
So
it.
we then communicated with the previous individual and said
Yeah.
that we were going with this new person. And the person that's been doing it this year has done a fabulous job.
Yeah.
Really helped. I think safety is a concern, particularly since this building goes right up to the sidewalks and water drips down. We certainly get some ice buildup, but I think the snow removal has been pretty effective.
There was opportunity this year. I have a question too, just on the financial thing. I don't know if you can do this, but you have your checking, your amounts that you have in checking. I'd like to actually see a comparison year to date. Could you do that?
Yeah, actually Bob mentioned that, and this is for all of our funds together. Yeah. This is for all of our funds together. Our general fund this year has $750,000 right now, because we just got all of our taxes. Last year this time, it was more around 600 or 650. But part of that is due to the counselors and also due to our higher state school fund.
But there is that possibility of putting something like that?
Oh, you want to add it to the report every
Yeah,
month?
can you
Oh,
just-
yes,
you
I
might?
can,
Okay.
yes. So the way it's set up right now, it's for all funds together. Do you want it like that, or do you want a general fund only?
I just actually, just right there on the bottom, I would take that, just the checking balances and the balances this year to last year.
Okay, I can do that. Mhm.
Makes you feel kind of more fuzzy.
Yeah, no problem.
Any more questions on the financial and superintendent report?
Keeping it pretty short this meeting. I know we have some lengthier items to get to later. First, a little bit of a legislative update. There is a bill, House Bill 4022, to extend the PERS exception statewide for SLPs and SLPAs. This is actually the only one I think that Will mentioned the other night that I was really familiar with. We're watching this one. It's a little unfortunate. Lake County, as I think the board knows, because we're under 40,000 in population, we have the ability in both education and law enforcement to hire PERS retirees. And of course, that's something that this ESD has made great use of, including yours truly. So I so often refer to it as the Lake ESD business model. I'm a little concerned that this exception, it looks like it's going to go through, is going to be granted for speech language pathologists and assistants. There's also talk that in the 17 session in a year, there's already talk that they're going to try to expand this to school psychologists as well. And that's certainly not gonna make our ability to hire these kinds of specialists any easier. I'm sure there's very good reasons for this. I know that my colleagues in the big huge ESDs in the valley, I have the same problems we do in terms of attracting SLPs, school sites, special ed teachers, whatnot. But anyway, I see this trend as probably not a good one for the Lake ESD. We were supposed to have a conference call this week with Senator Whitsitt, but it was supposed to be yesterday, wasn't it? Unfortunately, his committee schedule changed and he had to cancel at the last minute. We're gonna rearrange it for next week sometime, but that's one of the concerns that I certainly have, and I know Mr. Cahill voiced it as well Monday night, that this trend is not real good for the rural ESDs. So anyway, just get that out there. There's two bills in front of the legislature right now. One is to develop programs to deal with absenteeism by the Chief Education Office. The other one is the bill to get ODE on board. Our question to Senator Whitsitt was going to be, you know, is this it sounds to us like an unfunded mandate. From what I've heard, this is not really to beef up penalties for chronic absenteeism, but really to require schools to have a lot of programs, which I'm okay with that. But again, we live in a time of pretty short budgets, and from what I understand, they're going to want some pretty in-depth programs by the school to deal with absenteeism. So we're watching those two bills very closely as well.
Bob, is chronic absenteeism, is it still considered like truancy?
Absolutely. And chronic absenteeism is defined as more than 10% of the school days. Yeah. And of course, even though the Lake County schools tend to have higher than state average attendance, all of our school districts have chronic absenteeism that we're dealing with. So, Senate Bill 1537, it looks like they're coming to a compromise as far as extending those rather controversial fifth-year programs. District 7, of course, has made use of this the last couple of years. I don't really believe that Paisley and North Lake have but what they're talking about doing is, rather than paying, these are basically fifth-year seniors who go to a community college, tuition is paid by their ADM. They're talking about reducing this to 0.75, 3/4 of a regular ADM, so they wouldn't be paying the full state rate for these kids, and trying to target it to at-risk kids. And I'm not exactly up on what kind of process they're gonna use to define what these at-risk kids are, but it looks like the state is trying to narrow these fifth-year programs down. And of course, right now, we're in a moratorium year where only schools that have had it previously can have it this year, like District 7. Yeah, no districts were allowed to create the program this year. So, there's also going to be a statewide tip line for school threats. This is actually something that's been promoted very heavily by the Oregon Association of ESDs, who've been working closely with a legislative committee on school violence and school threats. And then, of course, the well-known minimum wage legislation, which, right as it stands right now, it's on the governor's desk, it's been passed by the Senate and the House. It would mean that in Lake County, the minimum wage would go up 25% this July 1, and then 50 cents each of the next July 1s up until 2022, when it would reach $12.50 an hour. There's 3 tiers in the state. There's basically the Portland metropolitan area, where it would go to $14.75. I would say a lot of the Willamette Valley, where it would go to $13.50, and then rural Oregon $12.50. But there's a last gasp attempt right now to get some legislators to agree on some tax credits for small business, and there's been some talk about trying to offset some of the increases. Probably the minimum wage increase is probably going to stay there, but they're looking at trying to create some tax help for small business in Oregon to offset those minimum wage increases.
Aren't they trying to get it on the ballot also?
Well, the deal has been that there's 3 groups in Oregon that have said they're gonna put ballot measures on the ballot if the legislature and the governor don't create something. So that's one reason why you don't see the $15 an hour, which has been, discussed widely, because those ballot measures were aimed at that $15 an hour. And so what the legislature's tried to do with 1532 here is really try to compromise, particularly for the more rural parts of the state, so. Keep you posted on that one.
Would that affect us at all, Bob? The minimum wage going up like that?
Isn't it $9.75 in July and $10.25 or $10.50 in January 1st? That's what the newspaper said in Klamath yesterday.
It's an annual increase every July 1.
Okay, they said something about
25
Jan.
cents this year and then 50 cents every year thereafter through 2026.
So it's
Yeah,
July,
it's,
okay, the paper, it was
Yeah.
said
July
January.
1.
Vicki, I don't have,
Okay,
I thought the increases were only on July 1, but
That's-
Yeah.
you might be right. I'll pass this around. This is an FAQ on it, and of course, we're up here at the top.
I was
No.
surprised when I read that yesterday, but
Yeah.
read it it's twice. in
No, it
there.
does not answer Jim's question, and I'm gonna let Sarah answer Jim's question.
The 975 won't affect us,
Yeah.
no. As it moves forward, it might affect us like a custodial position, but our regular staff, it won't affect.
Okay. That's right.
It will affect our districts though.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
On the bargaining, say for, how can I say the word, like teachers' aides and stuff. Now, do you think that's gonna affect local schools' bargaining power? Are they gonna say, wow, if we're making 16, and minimum wage is gonna go up a couple bucks, then we're worth 18, rather than, even though the minimum wage is trying to fill the gap
That's just what always
between.
happens to everybody's wages.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I should say it won't have a direct effect.
but the
it
people in their
could
head are
have
gonna think,
indirect
do you
effect
see
that way.
that
Yeah.
affecting
Yeah.
the school districts? People
Possibly.
thinking, oh, well, minimum wage went up $2, I'm worth $2 more, so basically you got the same.
Especially if they're still paying their student loans on it.
I know that Jim
They're making minimum
Daniels,
wage.
Yeah.
Good to be you.
Janet at District 7 did a little quick down and dirty study on it and figured that the impact of District 7 by that kind of domino effect would probably be over $1 million. Just for District 7.
Well, affect the whole, every business in the county the same way.
Yeah,
Oh,
yep.
absolutely.
An update on our kindergarten and regional achievement grants. We had our second community meeting on the regional achievement grant at Paisley last Thursday. Just like here in Lakeview, we had a whopping turnout of 9 people. So Paisley actually, even though it was a numerical tie, Paisley wins because that's a higher percentage of their
Right.
population. Although the majority, I think 6 of us were from Lakeview. When I say 9, I'm counting everybody in the room. That's the bad news is that we've, and Vicki can tell you this too, we've had a difficult time getting, participation from the people that we really want. On the other hand though, we have really, in the last few weeks, really started to look very seriously at this concept of a kindergarten camp in both Paisley and Lakeview. We've been in contact with the superintendents, the kindergarten staff, what people we can get a hold of, and this idea is really starting to take off because it really hits the sweet spot in terms of identifying the at-risk incoming kindergartners, and actually in Paisley it may be just every incoming kindergartner. I know in North Lake they've done it the last 2 years. I've been talking to Dave about it. They try to get every incoming kindergartner in.
Oh, we've done that for way longer than 2 years.
Okay.
They go on a bus ride and meet the teacher and the whole bit forever.
Okay. What we'd be looking at doing this for is the equivalent of 2 weeks. District 7 is quite interested in doing this the 2 weeks before Roundup. Paisley is kind of kicking around right now. Actually, they were even thinking about maybe kind of spreading it out over the summer, but they haven't really come to any conclusions. Sarah and I have done a kind of a rough budget on it. What we've proposed to the districts is that with our RAC money, we can fund the teachers, the aides, the cafeteria staff, because there would be food service. Things, pretty much things of the personnel nature. We've asked the districts to partner with us by providing the food and the transportation.
You're talking a 2-week scenario, you'd be able to fund that.
Yeah, 2 weeks, yeah. And so right now, that seems to be the consensus of the people that we have had come to the table. And so we're excited, because it really puts the kids that we really need there in the seats with the teachers in the schools, and you know, just the socialization that occurs when you do that is just, from in talking to other people that have done this similar thing, including North Lake, very powerful. So
Are there preschool services now up at North Lake and Paisley?
Kind of, we
We
have
do,
a,
yeah.
it's not a preschool per se, it's, I don't think do you remember the grant we had?
it's,
like
they have an Oregon
groups
Community
throughout-
Foundation.
There you go.
And what they're doing some very similar things to what we're doing down here in Lakeview, which is basically kindergarten readiness and enrichment activities, where they have community nights and get families in and you know, really run through some things with the parents and the kids to help get the kids ready or help the kids be more successful.
And it provides like transportation dollars for the parents to get the kids there, all kinds of different, you know.
Yeah.
But I think we have one more year on that and it runs out.
I think so, yeah.
But it's absolutely not for creating a preschool, it's basically enrichment.
Right.
Paisley has an in-school preschool. They do it for 2 days a week, 2 or 3 hours a day. I think it's 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. They're kind of the model,
It's like a kindergarten pre-entry.
yeah, yeah. And then what, you know, they basically just have their preschoolers come in for those 2 days, and they're actually part of the kindergarten class.
Oh, okay.
The teacher and the aide plan their lessons accordingly.
Good idea.
I like this kindergarten camp, it's kind of like when you went off to college, like opening days or first
Yeah.
week before you went to school, you know, see what's going on.
I know my kid loved it, you know, you meet the teacher and then he gets to, because where we're at, you know, the friends are all 10 miles away, so he really doesn't know the other kids, so then they ride the bus and they're
That's a
pretty
big
pumped
deal.
when they get back, and then like Laura goes with the parent, a lot of parents are like, well, what can I do to prepare my kid for kindergarten? Because you basically have kids coming in that don't know their primary colors and stuff, so she hands them, you know, she has literature for the parents to work with their kids with over the summer and different things to get them ready for kindergarten. It works really well. And they're not scared of the teacher when they come back. That's the,
Well, by the time they get to kindergarten, if you got a year or two of preschool, everybody knows what they're capable of and what you're up against.
and like I said, we don't have a preschool, but Laura said it's made a significant difference, the parents bringing the kids.
Oh, yeah.
When they do get to kindergarten, the kids that come and don't come, it's a huge difference, so.
So in the camp, do the parents stay, or is it they drop the children off?
Drop the children off. Like I say, what we're talking about doing is running buses.
Yeah. I
So,
wonder if it, would you have more of a lasting effect if you did 3 weeks of 3 days, you know, like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and
yeah, we've kind of talked about that, and that's one of the things, we're gonna leave it up to the districts to decide. If the districts decide to pursue this concept, we're not gonna micromanage how they do that. We're basically gonna say, here's the money that's available, you know, and however you wanna structure it. Like say, in Paisley, there was actually some talk about doing that, about stretching it out longer.
For the
Yeah.
summer, a couple of days a week, yeah.
yeah,
Basically to keep them up with their reading,
right.
so they didn't lose it and
If you
stuff
can get
over
the
the
parents
summer.
to-
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I was thinking.
yeah, that's what
Get that
Mary
little-
was
Well,
talking
yeah,
about.
it's, you know, that was one of my first questions to Dave was, do you have problems getting the kids there? And it sounds, from what Laura and I have only exchanged emails, but it sounds like she's had real good participation.
It's a struggle though, I mean, it is a struggle for a lot of parents. I mean, fuel money's even though fuel's down, it's a huge concern, but people really do care and try, so.
Our curriculum and instruction support position, Marcy Nichols' position, we have applicants for that position. We've had some people express interest. I think we're gonna end up with at least 4 applicants for that position. We're looking at doing interviews probably right after spring break. I wanna kind of get that one taken care of, because as you'll see here tonight, we have a resignation, and we have another position to fill now, so. I'm very satisfied with the pool of applicants that we have, so that's good news. I thought I'd give you a little bit of an update on our library consultant position. We've had that the last 2 years. 2 years ago, we hired Linda Bilyeu, who's a retired librarian out of Ben Lapine. The basic concept here was because since none of the schools in Lake County had a certified librarian on staff, and ODE, when most of you know that once a year you have to attest that your districts are meeting Division 22 standards, and one of those 135 or whatever it is standards is that your libraries are supervised or overseen by a certified librarian. And so we hired Linda. She's on paper, she works, I think it's 24 days a year for us. In actuality, I can tell you she works many more days than that. She was actually in the office today. We were talking about several of the things that she's got going. In some of the schools, I think her impact has been very apparent, particularly in Paisley, when you walk into their library and see the total physical transformation. I would say North Lake is probably a close second in terms of doing some things differently up there. She's had a great deal of success in getting the electronic and internet-based systems upgraded in all of the libraries. She's done a number of professional development activities with the librarians. In fact, the day that we had Marcia Moyer in Paisley in October, she had a county-wide meeting of librarians in Paisley. So she's doing some really good work. I'd say that the reason that Bill Wirtz is staying is because Cindy likes working with Linda, and that's taking care of that. Anyway, Linda's just doing a fabulous job, and we're I think we're very lucky to have her. I think she's just doing a really cool job for us. So, and that's my report. Any questions?
Oh, fun. Moving on to board policies. No, I'm not letting this drink in.
Okay. There are several policies. I'd like to take the first 3 together.
Family member is a relative.
Yeah, the first 3 all have to do with board member ethics, and nepotism, and staff ethics. And really on all 3 of those policies, it's just they're broadening the definition of relative to include people in the household, people that have an economic interest in the board member or in lost my train of thought, in the staff member, and it's pretty housekeeping. These are not required policies, but they are, all 3 of them are highly recommended. And they are all current policies of the Lake ESD. Then the next one. The one that I've been kind of dreading. This is policy GCBDD, sick time. Now, I'm sure most of you, particularly if you're on a component board, are somewhat familiar with this, because this came out of the 2015 legislative session, in which the legislature passed legislation mandating sick time for employees of certain sized firms. It was fairly well known at the time. There's been a lot of talk in education circles around this, because there was initially a lot of talk, particularly by OSBA, to try to get coaches and substitute teachers removed from this policy or this legislation. That did not happen, okay? So at some point, and maybe even at your most recent meetings, we've discussed this policy, coaches and substitute teachers fall under this, so they qualify for some sick time. Since we don't have either of those categories here at the ESD. I'm happy to answer questions, but I'm probably not gonna at this time go into detail unless you really want me to on those two. And besides that, if you ask me any really tough questions, you know I'm gonna turn to my left and say, Sarah!
I do have a,
John, go ahead.
is this, I could see how it could work for a long-term sub. And it, I think maybe they should have sick time. But do you start accumulating the number of days that a person has worked for the district as a substitute? And then they get a sick day for every, what, 22 days that they work?
1 hour for every 30 hours worked, approximately.
So that's more bookkeeping for,
Before you have a sick day for a substitute that's sick, I think, don't they have to give 12 hours notice? Or 24 hours notice,
They
or
have
some,
Be
they can't
scheduled
just,
24 hours ahead of time. So if they just call in the morning
and say,
and
hey,
say, I
sick.
can't come,
Yeah,
then
but
you
it
don't have
doesn't
to pay
work.
them. But if you called them the day before, so anything that's planned basically is subject, it's a,
They have to plan
but
a
if
sick
it's,
day.
yeah.
it's a.
Well, if you call them and they have a dentist appointment,
Oh,
and say, I
I see.
can't
And of
come,
course,
then
yeah.
they can ask to be paid, but if you call them and say, no,
Yeah.
I'm not feeling good, then you don't have to.
Yeah. And that, you know, at least on the substitute part, it makes maybe on some level some sense. Where it really doesn't, of course, is on coaches.
Coaches, yeah.
Because coaches are paid a stipend, they're not paid by the hour, they're not paid by the day, they're just paid a flat stipend. That stipend is not reduced if they call in sick. But anyway, I digress, and I'm probably just muddying the waters with that, I'm sorry. Here's the bottom line for the Lake County ESD. This is a required policy. We have to have it on the books. It isn't going to change anything in terms of our policies or procedures. It could be down the road, if we have a part-time employee who doesn't qualify or previously didn't qualify for some type, for sick leave under our previous policy, it could cover. But really, right now, it is just redundant to our current sick leave policy. And I don't like having to have GCBDC, sick leave, followed by GCBDD, sick time. It makes me sick because I'm thinking it's kind of confusing. But it's required, it's the law. For some districts, not for the Lake ESD, but for some districts, it'll probably mean some collective bargaining adjustments because, you know, in many union shops, the definition of what you can use for sick leave is controlled by that collective bargaining agreement. You know, here's, at the ESD, Sarah and I we've talked about this for hours. It really does not impact us. We don't have a collective bargaining agreement. The sick time procedures align very well with how we allow our employees to take sick leave. And so Sarah and I don't believe at this point that it's gonna cause any disruption or change here at the ESD, other than the fact that you're gonna have this second policy called sick time on the books, and occasionally somebody's gonna look at that and go, wait a minute, how do these two?
when does the clock start on this, so to speak?
It started January 1st.
And it's not retroactive if you've already had, okay.
No. Sarah, have I correct all the wrong things I just said?
I think you got it.
Okay, and moving along, then there's then there's another one that's, I think, a little bit, this is gonna require a little bit of discussion on our part here. The criminal records, checks, and fingerprinting. The Lake ESD current policy is that an employee may begin employment on a probationary basis pending the return of the fingerprint checks. Okay. There has been several legal changes on this, but districts are still allowed to basically retain the policy that we currently have. But OSBA has put this out. Our current policy, if you look at the third paragraph there on GCDA, the third paragraph, our current policy reads, the ESD may begin the employment of an individual. And you will see there that, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes, so I need to I need to quickly find this. You'll see there that in the third paragraph, the first choice that we're gonna have to make tonight is the ESD shall or shall not. They're really they wanna get rid of that loosey-goosey may and say we're either gonna do it or we aren't, okay? So that's the first choice. Then you can see then begin the employment of an individual or terms of an ESD contractor. Second choice, on a probationary basis pending or before the return and disposition of such criminal records check. The service of a volunteer may or will not begin on a probationary basis before the return of disposition of a criminal records check. And then we've left in the sentence that says, however, no individual will have unsupervised direct contact with students until the return and disposition of the criminal records check. Now, I made sure that stayed in, but again, that's gonna be up to what the board decides. I left that in there because that's our current policy. That last sentence is our current policy.
But that could be a speech therapist, that could be a psychologist, and they're going to be.
They'll have theirs done through TSPC.
TSPC.
So-
This really only affects classified employees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Certified employees are done by TSPC, classified employees are fingerprinted through ODE.
Okay.
Yeah, and so this is
And there's not a very long period that it takes to get those back, is it?
No, it might be a couple weeks though.
Yeah.
It's not days.
And do you do the fingerprinting and the check before you hire,
No.
or after you can't do it until after? When you hire them pending the outcome of whether they go to work or not.
So legally, what kind of exposure will we have if we do hire somebody without a background check and something happens in the meantime, or I mean fingerprints? How would that affect us legally?
I think your liability would be huge. I think that, there's absolutely no arguing that the liability incurred on that would just absolutely be enormous.
Well, I think this how, no individual will have unsupervised, so that should kind of keep it from happening.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than if they're not supervised.
I was thinking,
I just go shall not.
yeah, that's fine.
I can read this is a memo that came along with the policy, and I'll be glad to go make copies for everyone if you want. To me, the most important paragraph here says, while this new law gives districts the right to have a new employee start working pending the completion of a background check, it is important to recognize that there is a certain level of risk that goes with this practice. The most obvious risk is the hiring of an individual who is not legally allowed to work for a public school. Allowing an individual to start work prior to having an actual knowledge of the individual's legal qualifications could result in the person having unsupervised access to students and injuring a student.
Would that be a big thing if we didn't let them go to work until that? I mean, is that ever gonna hang me up?
It's, in terms of the general ESD, I would say, no, it's not really gonna be a problem. I think where we've said it could perhaps be a problem once in a while would be with our youth mentor program, correct?
Yeah. But, if you hire when we hire a classified position, usually it's already been vacated. So it would just add a couple weeks on to it not being filled.
Yeah.
I guess when it comes to the kids, a couple weeks to me is nothing.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
better.
exactly.
Well, to me, it's better than going, oh geez, there's this crazy guy.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So shall not?
Shall not.
Shall not,
In
okay?
agreement?
Yep.
And then before, will not.
And before, right?
And before, yeah. Okay, and so then, we will then strike that last sentence as well, that however, no individual will have unsupervised,
Yeah.
Do we need to?
yes.
We do
Well, I
need-
think,
makes
yeah,
it
because
plain.
because we're saying we are not going to allow those individuals to start. So, and again, the only reason I included
Yeah,
that
okay.
sentence, was because it was in our current policy, and I thought that if the board did want to stay with more of the current policy, I felt it was important to leave that sentence in.
Especially if you've done the shall and may and, yeah.
Okey dokey.
Public complaints.
Well, school districts are gonna be passing this also. And there is a real danger for school districts to have a classified person, an assistant, along with a kid. It's gonna happen, especially in say Flush and Adel.
One of the things we had in Paisley, because we're an online school, and so parents go out and contract different teachers, stuff to do different things like piano lessons, swimming lessons. How is that gonna work? So we actually put that on the parents, to be the parents' responsibility. But we're still worried about,
Yeah.
is there exposure?
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well,
And then the last two are the public complaints and public complaints AR. These are not required, but again, they're highly recommended. Basically, they're just fine tuning the procedural end of things, particularly on the role of the board when there's a public complaint. If you turn over to the back side of the policy, you'll see there, all the changes there have to do with the role of the board. And not, again, these are current ESD policies, so they're not huge changes. You can see, if you go to the AR on the second page, you'll see again, there's several changes, 3 paragraphs there, but it's all just fine tuning what's the role of the board in terms of complaints.
What do we wanna do on that? We have a decision on the first page.
Oh, yeah.
Not a big one. Board vice chair.
Let's see where you at. Oh, we're on the second page.
Am I ahead of myself?
No.
Oh,
No, no.
I'm looking at the wrong one, I'm sorry.
I'm looking at the regular policy, not the AR.
Right, okay.
That first sentence of the regular policy is kind of unclear too, it doesn't.
What's that, Stephanie?
Well, the first sentence of the actual policy doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So nobody will be denied the right to petition the board for redress of a grievance. Complaints will be referred through the proper. Maybe it's 2 sentences.
Yeah.
Instead of a comma, it needs to be period.
I think if we had an English teacher here, they would say that's kind of a run-on
Period.
sentence.
period, and then complaints.
As an
Channeling
editor, I
Barb.
wasn't going to speak up, but yes, that is supposed to be, that should be a period after grievance, not a comma.
Oh, I think you're right.
Okay, that then makes sense.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Alright.
So then, period, capital C on complaints.
I'm the champion of run-on sentences, so I figured it out.
Process for resolution for this, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then on the back side of that, as Clayton points out, if you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs, you'll see it says complaints against the board chair may be made directly to, your choice is the ESD council or the board vice chair on behalf of the board.
I would like you guys to have to call Dale, or everybody to call Dale.
Yeah.
Somehow I knew that's where you were going to go with that. What do most other boards do? Board chair, board council?
Boy, you know, probably in the next board meeting for several of you, you'll be looking at this same policy. I have no idea. I'd like, off the top of my head, I'd like to say I would imagine they're gonna go with the vice chair, because typically you don't have, your council is only available when you
Once a
call
month.
them.
Right.
And it's,
Be like,
yeah, not very accessible, I guess would be my thinking on that.
don't you screw up.
His phone number's in the directory.
Yeah.
It sure is.
Hey, you don't have a cell phone.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
Board vice chair?
Yeah.
What you wanna do? Okay.
And then same on the administrative role.
Is there another one?
Yeah,
On the
just say it.
On the AR?
administrative role.
thing I would suggest, was step 3 on that, is to make it 10 working days. You can get a situation where the initial meeting is right before, say, Christmas vacation, and you'll run out of days.
True.
You still might run out of days.
Yeah. Are those business days though?
Business,
Just says 10 days.
Just as 10 days.
On step 3, it's 10 days, yeah.
I don't put business in there. and be
Yeah.
with it.
Is this state law? Otherwise, this isn't state law.
I don't believe, no,
No.
no.
I wanna make that 15 if you can.
How about we just put business in there?
Business days, and that would pull this harmless with a holiday, right?
Yeah, for weekends,
this
We could do
ESD,
15.
It's funny that
do you stay open during our Christmas? So that could, business days might,
And people,
You'd have to put in there ESD business days, right?
Right.
You need, everybody thinks of business days, you think.
well, step 2 and farther down say working days.
Yeah, they, in the first paragraph, they used the term working days. That might be slightly better than business days, actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
That would imply, because you know, we do a,
Not Monday through Friday, but whatever.
right,
days you work.
because we do a yearly
yeah.
ESD calendar that indicates what our working days are, so.
Oh, yeah, the second paragraph says working days,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
that makes sense.
yeah.
So that'd be,
You okay with that, or do you wanna go with
oh, that's
15?
cool,
I
yeah.
was just thinking if it was 10 working days, it's the same as 15 with weekends.
Yeah.
I don't
Or
think
close.
so.
Just leaving
Well-
but adding working.
Even 5 working days, like in the second paragraph, that's a pretty tight timeline.
It's awful tight, yeah.
You wanna change that to 10?
Or 15. You know, if you really truly get a complaint against an administrator or a board chair or a board member, that's pretty serious, and whoever's handling it is probably gonna take care of it as soon as possible, but because of certain extenuating circumstances, they might not be able to.
So you wanna change all these to 15 then, is that what you're
Yeah,
thinking?
I would say 15.
You guys okay with that?
one says days, and one says working
Oh,
days.
This is just a first reading, so if you don't mind, I will call OSBA and make sure that they're okay with those.
Yeah.
And there's a little thing down here at the bottom, says timelines may be extended upon written agreement between both parties.
Right, and depending on what it is, if you start the investigation, you say, we're in it, and we're gonna need more time. It's just you're not ignoring the person, so that
Uh-huh.
you're doing follow-up, so.
I have no complainants that wouldn't go for that. Yep. Not,
Oh, yeah.
not for the ESD, but
So do we need a motion on
No,
those?
just-
Is that an action or
No,
we
let's just go-
like
let's go.
that?
Let's go with the first reading on that.
I'm just thinking our board would always make a motion to accept the first reading for whatever reason, so that's why I'm like,
So you don't have to do a second reading?
no, we still do.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we don't always accept them, but we make a motion that we've done it. We've done the first reading. and Different deal, where are we at? Oh, wow. Oh, employee resignation.
Yes,
A
in
lot
your,
of these lately, wow.
in your packet, you'll find a letter of resignation from Megan Hannigan, who has just completed her third year with us. She's just done just a fantastic job. Unfortunately, her husband has been offered a job in Coos Bay. I think Megan is leaving very reluctantly. She enjoys her job here, enjoys working with the component districts. She has been just a wonderful person to have around, a very positive influence, I think a very positive influence on the kids. She'll be greatly missed, greatly missed.
So do we need a motion to accept that resignation?
We'll do that in action items.
I'll move that we accept the resignation
That's like,
reluctantly.
Oh,
do
second.
we do it now?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
with our thanks to her.
Can we just, actually, that would be bad, but could we skip to action items before we do the executive session?
I think
Get
that's,
them over and done, so
I think
everybody
that is a
can leave.
fantastic.
You guys okay with
Yeah,
that?
that's-
Make a change?
Yeah.
Or do we wanna do that meeting change first? Do it then.
June meeting change date, 6/15, to move it to June 15th?
Yes, this is a purely personal request on my part. I have made some vacation plans for what would that be, the third week of June? And so I'm hoping that the board will see clear to move the meeting up to June 15th for me. If you don't, I don't know, I could probably call in from where I'm at.
It all depends where you're going.
Yeah.
If you
Feel
have a really,
hostage here.
yeah, if you have a really good vacation plan, maybe, yeah.
We're going to Cabo.
That time of year? No, that's not acceptable.
That's only because I am so dedicated that I will not go this time of year.
Now, where are you going?
Mexico.
A lot of cartels down
Yeah, like cartels. So at least see what your
We
sideline is.
better,
I
we
got it.
better, we better have our meeting before it goes, 'cause we don't know what's gonna happen down
But you
there.
know, with the legalization of marijuana.
Background check when he comes back.
Yeah.
Deals out.
And that he can't be held as ransom, we're not authorized to pay ESD funds.
I'm okay with it.
That's good.
Yeah, you guys okay with it?
Is that the week school's
That's
out?
not what we use our
It's a couple weeks
contingency
after
plan
school's
money
It
for.
is, okay. School's out like the,
Schools, the last day for District 7, I believe, is the 9th. I forget if that's students or teachers.
yeah,
So,
it's somewhere in there.
This board meeting would be on the 15th, so, you know.
Within a week.
Yeah, and I think I'm leaving on like the 18th, something like that. If I'm leaving, if you approve this.
Get the right presents to the staff and the board, that's the
I
other.
think we're okay with it.
Yes.
Yeah, do we need a motion to do that, or just do it?
We actually need a motion to change the calendar, don't we?
Now I make a motion to change the June meeting to June 15th.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm still raising my hand. Okay. What's the-
Tuition agreement?
That's it for that. If we move down to action items,
Yeah, and let's, we'll have to do the certified officers of employment after the executive session. That's the one we'll have to do.
oh, okay,
The rest of them we can all do right now.
okay, we've already put that, the resignation, the meeting change, and the tuition agreement.
Okay, the tuition agreement. With that recent resignation, I just want to let the board know where we are on that, because for Stephanie, this is probably news to her. The ESD typically, when they pay tuition for an employee, as require that the employee sign an agreement to remain for 3 years after they complete their program. Okay? This employee, as you can see here, just from my cover memo here, I say in September of 2013, this employee agreed to work for 3 years following the completion of her special ed endorsement program. She completed her secondary endorsement in the fall of 2014, so that was pretty much at the start of last year. She completed her elementary endorsement in the spring of 2015. I'm proposing that Megan be given credit for having worked 2 years after the completion of her secondary endorsement and 1 year after the completion of her elementary endorsement. See that what that means for the bottom line in terms of what she would owe. And then if you'll go back, actually let's start on the third page. Sarah's broken this down by time. Again, she got the secondary endorsement first. You can see we've added up the total tuition that was spent there. We've broken it down 2/3, 1/3, giving her credit for 2 years out of the 3 on that. And then if you drop down to the elementary, you can see the same thing, giving her credit for 1/3 out of that.
Have you gone over with this with Megan?
Yes, this is not a surprise to her. She knew from day one that that this was the situation. She's not shirking it. She is asking if she can repay it over like a 3-year period. They basically divide it into thirds. She can't right now afford to pay the whole thing up front, but she's probably happier about it than I am,
Yeah.
to tell you that.
Yeah, we
And we've
have
done
had
that in
some
the
hard,
past. Huh?
we have had some hard feelings, well,
Yeah, oh yeah.
Well, I
Oh,
We've had
because you
some
have the
payback.
extended, they're supposed to work and then they leave and then they don't wanna, I can understand that though.
There's been a couple times where the paperwork wasn't done either.
Speaking of that, the middle page is the paperwork, the middle page is the
Yep.
contract between Megan and I.
Sign.
I am going to use this to tell the board that in March, I'd like to just have a little bit of a session with the board as far as sharing what other districts, what other ESDs do. I think, first off, we do not have a policy on this. This is all based on past practice and tradition at Lake ESD. I think it's time to talk about this. I think it's time to look at what other school districts and other small ESDs do. I've already started to gather that information. I don't have, I don't have a firm recommendation yet of what I want to do. I am gonna say this, I do believe in the competitive environment that we're operating in now, trying to attract personnel. Agreements like this probably don't make our lives any easier. But I also respect the history and the procedures of Lake ESD. So anyway, I think in March I would like to share some information with the board. And I do believe that there needs to be some type of written policy. I don't have a recommendation as far as.
As many
that
times
there
as
isn't.
we've done this,
There
I
is-
thought
there is
we
no-
had policy.
There is-
Yeah, because we've done this enough.
And I
that-
think that's one reason why, as a couple of board members point out, that there's been some issues. There's been some agreements either not entered into or lost or whatever. And I just think, we need to come at this from a policy standpoint, and we need to really solidify our paperwork around
Oh,
this.
yeah. And I don't know how binding it is if it's, I mean, if your family's moving for livelihood, how can you hold responsible? I mean, if they gave 2 out of 3 years, and, I mean, you can't expect the person to say, oh, I'll stay here my 3rd year while my family moves away, so.
they will benefit very possibly wherever they go.
Mhm.
From the, what we,
Mhm.
I'm sure that Michelle may have a job wherever in Coos Bay or so.
but I think we need a policy.
Yeah.
And I agree with what you're doing on a, cost share basis,
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the right approach.
Thank you. Yeah, because I realize,
It's
think
there.
that-
one could argue that we could say no, that she only gets one year's credit, but I don't, this lady took 34 credit hours in a little over a year and finished this program faster than anybody probably ever has, while working full-time.
And if you
Yeah.
force somebody, it's like we had a science teacher that we loved, part of the
Right.
community, great science teacher, she left, went to Roseburg. But she didn't give us the proper notice, it's basically, I'm moving, see ya, and then we're in a scramble to get a science teacher, so it goes back to that same thing, what quality, we could have forced her to stay due to the contract, but what quality of employee do you have if you,
Right.
You have
Yeah.
none.
if you
Right.
force them, so I think,
Exactly.
yeah. So I think it's better just to have that
Oh,
system
yeah.
like you have, a pay it back kind of system.
Mhm.
So, anyway, I think it's a good discussion. March is typically kind of a slow month for us, so I think it's a good opportunity to have that discussion.
That give you enough time to get information? from
Oh, yeah,
other
like I say, I've already got it rolling,
Okay.
and, that having to go through
Yeah.
this sort of opened my eyes, yeah.
We need a motion.
I will make the motion that we accept the tuition agreement presented by Mr. Nash.
Second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. So, yeah, I make a motion that we go into executive session under ORS 192.6602I.